Tommy Lloyd looks to revamp and refurbish a roster and look at 25, 26, and 27 because there are a lot of names to know.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke, locked on your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you today by FanDuel. Right now, FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That simple, that easy. All right, we are going to talk all Arizona recruiting today. We're going to go over what exactly this, everything that needs to happen then for Tommy Lloyd to have a very, very good class. And we're going to start with 2025, and then we're going to go onwards because there's a lot of names you need to know beyond just the ones that are on the right side there. But this really comes down to me for the first one you got to look at is Brayden Burries. Brayden Burries to me is the one player that Arizona has to have. You look at it and you're like, and you think to yourself, you go, what does Arizona not have this year? Doesn't have a lot of shooting. Doesn't have a lot of ball handling. That is something that they've got to address. And not only do they have to address that, they have to get somebody in there that's a difference maker, along with Jaden Bradley. Jaden Bradley is I love Jaden Bradley, but Jaden Bradley, you could also argue, is not the purest of point guards. I mean, he's not going to probably nobody's going to mistake him for Mike Bibby. I get all of that, but Jaden Bradley is still a very, very good point guard, but I think he's also wearing down to a certain degree. First of all, and then with you look at this team and you're like, all right, if you had both those guys in the backcourt next year, you can do a lot of different things. I mean, having 2 point guards is never a bad thing, and I think that Arizona would greatly benefit from that. But Brayden Burries has to be the one. Arizona has targeted him from the day that he was a young buck. Tommy Lloyd's coached him. He's going to be a one and done type player, and not only is he going to be a one and done type player, he's going to be the guy that you go in there and you're kind of like, all right, where exactly will this all fall then in the with it if you don't get him? There is no real backup option. You would have to go into the portal, but Arizona's got to get him. Like I said, Tommy Lloyd's recruiting approach is it's unique. I get it. It's unique. But at the same time, it's got to be able to hit at this point. And if it hits, it's good. But again, you got to be able to get these guys. There's sometimes that when you offer a kid late, you're kind of like, all right, well, yeah, what exactly is all of this? So we'll find out. But you got to get Brayden Burries. There's no excuse because Arizona actually tried to basically they turned down Elijah Arenas. They could have gotten Elijah Arenas. Tommy Lloyd was all in on Brayden Burries, and I get it if you are going to get Brayden Burries, but the problem is you've got to get Brayden Burries. I would imagine an announcement here is going to happen in the next 7 to 10 days. If Arizona gets Brayden Burries along with Dwayne Aristod, and then you've also got Bryce James, you're in a little bit better spot. And then hopefully you can get Peat. If you can get Peat, then you're really in a good spot. But Arizona's got to get Brayden Burries. That is the absolute must win of the entire class. And if you get him, then all is for naught. But if you don't get him, then a lot of people are going to be saying, you better get you had Elijah Arenas and you chose to go in this route. So you've got to be able to get him, and there's just really no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Okay, now the other one too, Peat. I think Brayden Burries ends up at Arizona. I don't really have any. I don't have a. How do I put this? With Brayden or with Peat. I don't have any feel on his recruitment. I don't think that anybody has a real feel on his recruitment. So we'll find out. But I kind of think at the end of the day, if you were to ask me, does he end up here? I think he ends up here. Mainly because mainly because I don't know that he's got any. I don't know that he has any better options. He doesn't strike me as the kid that probably wanted to come to the U of A, but at the end of the day, he's got to come here. I think because I just don't know that there's any other options. Are you really going to go to ASU? Now, I think a concern with this is, if ASU fires Bobby Hurley and then they hire somebody really good, then you're kind of like, oh, well, that sucks. Because again, Bobby Hurley is how do I put this? Bobby Hurley, I can't imagine going to play for Bobby Hurley, but if they keep Bobby Hurley, I also can't imagine the Peat ends up there. But who knows? I mean, I've certainly seen weirder things. So that's obviously something to keep an eye on. But this feels very much like the Aaron Gordon type recruitment, where you're like, okay, Aaron Gordon, you wanted to go to Washington. His dad wanted him to play with Lorenzo Romar. For Lorenzo Romar, they knew each other, but um, it just didn't work out that way because that team and that Washington team fell apart, and that team fell apart quickly. So, just kind of is what it is at that point. So now the next one that I think that we need to talk a little bit then about is Andre Iguodala Jr. All right, I think Andre Iguodala Jr. I would imagine that Arizona will. I would imagine that he is going to end up. I would imagine that he's going to end up here. I can't say this for a fact, but I do think that he's going to. I think that he is going to end up there. Now, the big thing about it is it's kind of the Bryce James type situation where with Bryce James is the how do I put this? The player that you look at and you're kind of like, okay, as long as you're good for 2 or 3 years, then I think that as long as you're good for 2 or 3 years, then I think that I think you can be a contributor by then. I think Andre Iguodala Jr. is much the same way. As long as you're here, if you're going to be patient, if you're going to enjoy the process, then I think you're going to be okay. But if you're not patient, if you don't enjoy the process, and and you go in there and you're like, all right, well, I want to play immediately, then it's not going to be the same. So you've got to figure that one out. So in I think with Arizona though, that's kind of what you're looking at. But Brayden Burries has to be the dude. Brayden Burries has to be the guy that you get. Because again, you prioritized him from day one. When you prioritize players from day one and you turn down other really, really good players, you have to look at it and be like, you have to look at it and say, okay, I got to be able to, you got to be able to get him. There's no real reason why you shouldn't be able to get him. So we'll see. Now, getting into 2026 is going to be very, very interesting because 2026 is a spot where you've got quite a bit of talent. You've got a lot of players that could fit in really, really well with what Arizona wants to do. The problem, though, and I think that you're going to keep coming into, is that Tommy offers very, very few kids. So when you offer very, very few kids, you've got to be able to hit on all of these ones, or you got to be able to hit on a very high percentage of them. If you don't hit on a very high percentage of them, then that's really where your problems kind of come into play. The first one you got to look at is Ikenna Alozie. Now, Ikenna Alozie is one of the better point guards in the entire country. He's really, really good, and he is at a position of need for Arizona. That is the other thing. He is at a position of need. You've got to be with him. He is a dude that you watch him and you're like, okay, your Arizona's going to need a point guard because look at it this way: Brayden Burries likely a one and done. Jaden Bradley, even if he's back, he'd be gone. You got to be able to get him. And if you get him, then, you got somebody to step right in there and be that player. But again, it's Tommy doesn't give himself a ton of margin for error here, so he's got to be able to hit that. And honestly, I think that he is going to do that. I think that we will find out, but I think he's going to hit on that one because again, he's got to prioritize. Those are the ones that he's got to prioritize. He prioritizes those, then I think that you're in an interesting situation there. Now with let's get into a little bit then. Let's get into a little bit then where we're at then with some of the players that haven't been offered yet, but probably should be offered because there are a number of very interesting candidates. And one of those players too, and you're going to see something here, the in-state recruiting classes are absolutely fantastic right now. We haven't seen this in quite a while where the in-state teams are so good and the indigenous players here are so good. And who could that one player be? But first, FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook app. With FanDuel, you could place live bets throughout the game, and from the opening tip-off to the fourth quarter comeback, you could stay in the action. That's the thing that everybody loves about FanDuel. You can stay in the action. You want to stay in the action. Now, again, I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. This is the cool thing about it, too. You've got the NCAA, you've got March Madness almost here. You've got NBA. The NBA is coming to a. The NBA is coming down. Is coming down the pike as well. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Again, FanDuel is make the game more interesting. I mean, we've talked about this before. You want to make the game more interesting, and FanDuel can do just that for you. So again, check it out at FanDuel. And again, NCAA tournament almost here. Check it out. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Okay, now let's talk about some more 2026 kids. Another one that I know the staff loves is Mason McGee. Mason McGee is a very, very good player on this Arizona team, or in the state of Arizona. He is a really, really good player. The thing that you got to like about Mason McGee is that Mason McGee is he's just a steady guy. He's out of Chandler Basha, and I know that the staff would have offered him. I know that there's guys on the staff that would have offered him a lot earlier if they could have. But again, that's a Tommy Lloyd decision. At the end of the day, if Arizona doesn't offer kids early, that's a Tommy Lloyd decision. Don't beat up the coaches. Don't beat up anybody else. That's Tommy Lloyd's decision. McGee, though, is one that they like a lot as well. He's from Basha. Good player. Really, really good player. Projects as probably a 3 or a 4 year type guy, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can win games with him. Not only can you win games with him, you can sit here and be like, okay, you know, you might not get that immediate impact. You're not going to get that Mike Bibby immediate impact, but he's going to be there. Did I freeze for a second? Oh, sorry. As long as he is, realistic about where he is in the grand scheme of things, then he's going to be all right with all of this as well. But again, I like Mason McGee. These are the kind of kids you offer. You've just got to be able to. You've just got to be able to put that out there. Mason McGee, I think, is a kid that you got to offer. Another in-state kid, too, to keep an eye on is Cam Williams out of St. Mary's. Arizona just offered him. Cam Williams is a really, really nice prospect. Again, a 6'8", long, lanky, and again, another guy can do a lot of stuff for you. He's athletic. He can play. He was another one that I'm glad Arizona offered because he was a no-brainer. It's going to be interesting to see how that does play out because he's a very talented player. And he is somebody that's just getting better. You look at his frame, you look at his build. He's the type of player that you would 1000% bring in. And not only do you want to bring in, you want him to be he can be one of those centerpieces. Again, probably not an instant impact guy, but a top 30 type player. Watching him, and you're like, you watch him and you're like, all right, he's just very, very unique. And again, another kid that's just from here. That's what's interesting about so many of these kids, is that these kids, they're not outside of Alozie, they're not prep school kids that aren't from here. They're born and raised in Arizona. And, when you get guys like that, you want to be able to hold on to them. That's why I think Peat is such an interesting one, because Arizona, to my knowledge, has never prioritized a kid as a top 5, top set, or, for 3 years and never gotten him. At least since from the Lute Olson era on, that's never been the case. You got to be able to get him, period. Cam Holmes is another one. In 2026, Cam Holmes, Deron Holmes' little brother, he's really, really good. And he's got a cerebral factor to him. He's big. He's about 6'6", not really a point guard, a wing. The shot has definitely gotten better, but he's another one that you're like, man, your best days ahead of you. You're going to be playing in the NBA at some point. And not only are you going to be playing in the NBA, you're going to be, you could be a top pick, because he's a top 15 player in the entire country. He's a player that he can go absolutely anywhere he wants. And not only can he go anywhere he wants, he can also be the guy too that he just continues to get better and better and better and better and better. And he's a good kid as well. The problem with a lot of these kids, though, too, is that these recruitments are so wide open right now that you don't know exactly. But you got to think that you got to at least hope that Arizona would get some of these kids. And Cam Holmes is right at the top of that list. As a matter of fact, I don't know, outside of Peat, if there's anybody that is a bigger in-state priority than Cam Holmes. He can, like I said, he's a better prospect than his brother, and we know how good of a player his brother was. So, take that one for what it is worth. Cam Holmes, though, another 2026 guy that's really, really good. Then you got another one, Christian Collins, out of California. One of the handful of best prospects in the entire country. Arizona's offered him just recently. The 2026 California class is absolutely loaded. You've got 4 of the 5 best players in the entire country in that realm. You got Wesley Stokes. You got Jason Gardner Jr. You've got Christian Collins. You had Elijah Arenas was one of those before he reclassified. Just an absolutely loaded class, and a program that is an estate that is just brimming with talent right now. So there's obviously that, but Arizona has offered those. And again, so that's kind of your 2026. Now, the 2027 class is interesting. Now, keep in mind, in the 2027 class, none of these kids will have offers yet, because Tommy Lloyd doesn't believe in offering kids early. But there are some names that we certainly need to keep in mind, and certainly have you all up to date on. And one of those guys, too, is a very, very familiar name. But first, Nissan. Nissan, my friends, here's the deal. The Nissan Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and all the new 2025 Nissan Armada. Last week, our Locked On College experts are picking one team that stands apart from top-seeded stars and the unexpected upsets. All right, the best team, in my opinion, in college basketball is Duke. Period. I don't go away from that. Duke, period. Duke is awesome. I don't really know any other way to put it. I would hate to sit here and say that, but Duke is really, really good. And again, this week's Armada, clear-cut team of the week. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, my friends, they go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what Duke has done. It's clear that our player of the week is out here ready to get started. Our player of the week, then, I'm going to go Henry Vasar. I think Henry Vasar has been amazing. I saw Henry Vasar at PetSmart, and he looks like he's ready ready to conquer the road with confidence, just like you can in the new Nissan Armada or any of the Nissan outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada Rogue or Pathfinder and go find your next adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Again, Henry Vasar, my Nissan player of the week, and Duke, my team of the week. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about where we are at with the 2027 recruiting. The first one that you want to know about is Jason Gardner Jr. Jason Gardner Jr. is an absolute stud. There's no other way to put it. He is awesome. He was one that you've got his dad on the staff. You watch him play. He's a no-brainer. He's practiced with the team. He's done a lot of different things with the team. He is really, really good. Arizona needs to offer him, and I would imagine he would commit. He's again just a really, really talented guy, athletic. He's more athletic than his pops, and he's a little bit bigger than his dad as well. He can get to the bucket. He can do a lot of different things. He's really, really good. Jason Gardner Jr. Again, Indiana's offered, Purdue's offered, but you got to think that if Arizona offers, that they would be the leader in the clubhouse for him. I would certainly hope so. If you slow play and you don't get Jason Gardner Jr., then I think there's some real questions to be had at that point about your recruiting philosophy. Okay, then 2027 as well, you got two more in-state kids to keep an eye on. Bruce Branch. Bruce Branch is really, really good. He is He's a player that you watch him and you're kind of like, well, his best days are definitely in front of him, and his best days are in front of him. He is he's a difference maker. He is a guy that you watch him and you're like, okay, he is he's probably 6'7" right now. And not only is he 6'7" right now, he is he's kind of in that realm too, where you're like, okay, how much better can you get? How much bigger can you get? Because you're looking at it and you're probably like, man, this guy could probably reach 6'8", 6'9". His family's tall. He is like I said, he's a monster. He's a really, really good basketball player, and he's the type of dude that watching him, you're kind of like, all right, your best basketball is definitely in front of you. He's an easy offer. He's out of Gilbert Perry as well. You offer kids like that, and you don't think twice about it. I would certainly hope that he gets an offer this offseason because he deserves it. He's got a lot of offers around the country. Another one, too, Darius Wobbington. I like him a lot. I know that there's a guy in the staff that loves Darius Wobbington. 6'11", can shoot, can run the court. Not a great athlete, but a good enough athlete, and he's legitimately 6'11". That's the thing about him, is that, and he's only going to continue to get better. He's a player that you watch him and you're like, okay, I can see why Arizona. I can see why why he is so highly rated. Not only can I see why he's so highly rated, he's a guy that he's just going to continue to get better. And I think that's what's exciting when you look at players like this. Can they continue to get better? And I think that's him. He's big. He's big. He's physical. He can do a lot of different things. And watching him, you're like, all right, you could probably be an early entry candidate. And I think that's something you got to keep in mind, is that he could be just that. I mean, it's going to be exciting to see what he can do, but Arizona needs to offer him. And then the other one too, those are the guys though in 2027, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens when it comes to offers and everything, because some of these guys are absolute no-brainers that they've got to be able to get. All right, you got Arizona, Kansas tomorrow. Obviously, I'm back in the A in this one. I'm going to pick Arizona to win this game. I think the Wildcats are going to win this game. I know it's senior night. I know it's Fog Allen. Or senior day. I get it's Fog Allen. I get that Bill Self's 29-2 on senior day. I also just don't think that Kansas is very good. And that's what I keep coming back to. I don't think that Kansas is very good. Kansas can definitely win this game. So if we're sitting here later and saying, well, Kansas won, well, guess what? I'm not going to be in the least bit surprised that Kansas won, because they are good enough to win that game. But I do think that Arizona is going to come out victorious, and then you go into the NCAA tournament and you are ready to go. and you're ready to go, and you're going to be in really good spot. But as always, though, wanted to get some Arizona recruiting in here because we deserved it. But very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. Locked On, your team every day. Bear down, back the A, and let's get that win in Fog Allen, and we will be back here with you on the postgame show, breaking it all down.